very happy to once again introduce our first speaker of today, Katarzyna Dorosz-Żurkowska. As you can see her present smiling, who is the head of Atlassian services at Deviniti. And Kasia works closely with Atlassian customers and cloud migrations. And today she will lead you in with an introduction to cloud migrations in practice. So Kasiu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Viola. You introduced myself, and probably better than normally I am doing when I am making a short speech. So, in general, my perspective today will be rather from the project manager side than the head of Atlassian services. I would love to lead you a little bit from the types of migration, how to do this, and in general, the overview. I am not deep diving really much, but if you would have any questions, leave it on the chat, on the Q&A part, and we will try to probably answer together to all of them. So, as Viola said, right now there is a huge pace of migration in Atlassian ecosystem, and we are feeling that Atlassian is pushing everyone to move to the cloud as soon as possible. But the way of moving there and getting there can be different. So the first strategy we are always talking about is the fresh start, where you can leave your data behind and start totally as a greenfield in cloud. This can be an option for, especially for those who are really long time on the data center or previously in server, and this is the way we can try to make sure we are up to date with our current processes and making them visible in the tool, not the tool adjust to the processes we have right now. That's the second, the most, I would say, popular type of migration, especially in our region, is lift and shift or optimize and shift, where we are taking the data from the data center and pushing it to the cloud. A little bit more difficult than I am saying right now, but in general, this is the way we are thinking about this type of migration. And the third one called phase, when we are dividing the data center data and push them to the cloud, depends on the need of the customer. Why I am saying this? Because not everyone needs the same type of the migration. And I am hearing my cat, who right now wants to join me during this presentation, but let's push it for next 5 minutes maybe. For whom they are. So especially the fresh start is for those who don't really need those data or can have them on the read-only mode and can start on the fresh environment. We see this can really help to make the cleaner, easier environment, lighter to use, more user-friendly. Based on my experience, still there is I would say, the panic mode when we need to leave those data behind, and most of the customers are still in the lift and shift mode for the migration. So this is the one which is recommended by Atlassian. If you heard that the phrase fast shift, this was about the lift and shift migration when Atlassian is helping customer to move faster to the cloud. The phase, especially if you have the bigger instance, previously it was said 3 million and 10,000 users, 3 million issues on the instance. Then let's see, you should figure it out how to divide it into parts, because it will be too heavy and the project in general will took so too long. Let's move forward to the lift and shift overview, because from the project management part, this is really structured and really, but I would say this is something you can quickly introduce to your plans of migration if you have them. So there are 7 phases of this project, starting from the assessment, going through the planning, preparation of the whole project, testing phase, or the test migration itself, migrating, on the production, launching for the end users, and then cloud business as usual, as we are saying. And this is the best part for everyone, because if you are on cloud, you can start to use those features which are not available on the data center right now. And there is the funnest part of the migration from our perspective, because the cloud right now can be really powerful, and I believe my colleagues will later talk a little bit of that from their perspective. Let's deep dive for a moment on the assessment phase. From my perspective, the most important one, because you need to choose the approach. You need to choose what you want in the cloud. You need to check what is possible. So we are checking then the security compliance part. We are doing the on-prem the on-premise instance check. We are checking the marketplace, which is always something which can bring some risk to the project or can make it really smooth. Depends on on what kind of the apps you are using on your instance. We are checking the user management and of course confirming with the internal stakeholders how to approach the migration. This is the moment for making decisions, but you need to have the proper information to make them. After that, we are landing in the planning phase, where we are checking how to prepare for the migration, how to do it from the technical point of view. So, of course, there is a kickoff of the project. We are creating the organization. We are planning the licenses, creating the migration strategy in details, how to do it, determine the app migration path, which is the really important part for everyone. And this is something which we will emphasize always to think about it as much as possible. We are creating the timeline, and the funny thing is happening because we are starting the projects that done. So we are trying to prepare for the migration. We want the people, the data, and the environment to be ready for the migration. So we are thinking about the communication plan. And as a project manager in the past, I would say this is the really, really important part. And there are plenty of organizations who don't think about end users who will be in change, and we need to manage this change somehow. We are, of course, creating the checklist how to proceed then with the migration itself, creating run books, so really technical stuff, I would say, planning the test migration and preparing the instance for it. And we are landing in the test migration and the UAT after. So this is the first moment when we can really check how the environment after the migration will look like, what we still need to update, what we still need to check. And we are going with reviewing the migration checklist, running the test migration, migrate apps data, everything which is important, and conducting the user acceptance testing. Really important part of it, sometimes lacking proper testing, which is always bringing some kind of the risk to the project, I would say. This is also the good moment to start training your people and the end users how the cloud will look like, what they will see there after landing in the new environment. People are always laughing that I am saying you need to train the end users, but why? Those are adult people, they should adjust, but we are from IT, and for us it's normal. There are business users who are not used to change of the system, and sometimes even something which is red and become blue can be painful for them. Let's think about this way. And we are planning when the production migration exactly would happen. So then we can move slightly to the migration, the production, where we finally move those users to the cloud. This is the moment when we can say this will be a first success if it will go proper. So all those technical activities ending by the decision of the customer, go or not go. So at least the last checkpoint after the production migration. And if everything is happened, we are launching the cloud for the end users. We are redirecting users to the cloud, and the funny thing is starting so the business as usual in cloud. And we need to make sure that they are getting the best for them, so they are prepared for for everything will happen. You can expand to a cloud-only product. You can advise on the changes. You can make the work more effective. This is something you should have in mind. So the migration in general is not starting. It's not ending after the moment when you have the production migration. The journey is right now starting, and this is something which we need to think about, because we feel that most of the customers are ending the project after the production migration, and they are leaving those people in cloud. Let's do everything as you did in the past, but this is not something which is giving you the effectiveness which is coming with the cloud. So I feel that I've used my 10 minutes for the presentation already. I would love to deep dive into the project risk, etc., but let's leave it for the next meeting. If you can give us a feedback on chat, what is missing for you, what you want to deep dive in during next session, it will be much easier for us to create the content for you also. So thank you guys for that. I am stopping sharing my screen. And
Kasia, you're right on time. You're right on time. So
wow,
perfect project manager.
So right now I can go to take my cat with me for
you
the
can
rest of the
do
session.
whatever, but I would rather you stayed with us because
I
wanted to say
I will.
I really appreciate your take on the communication strategy that you underlined. You know, for me, coming from a communication part of the company, I believe this is what works best when we need to introduce change. Yes, communicating it well. And it's in life as in business. Yes, it is the crucial part. You know, so thank you for underlining. I really appreciate this perspective, and you can lift and shift me whenever you wish. You
are already in cloud.
I am, and yes, and this is the best place to discuss that, right? So
yeah.
Okay, so thank you again, and now let's move on to our next speaker. Ed Gaile, the Principal Solution Architect at Appfire, who will share a marketplace vendor perspective and his updates for clients considering moving to cloud. Ed, apart from being Principal Solution Architect, is also an avid aficionado of pierogis and żurek. So if we ever meet, I hope I will be able to deliver on that, promised by Magda, of course. So Ed, the floor is yours.
Awesome. All right, let me share my screen. Share with this. Okay. So again, my name is Ed Gaile, Principal Solutions Architect here at Appfire. I've been in the Atlassian ecosphere for 15 years. I am the Atlassian Community Champion for Atlanta, Georgia. And as Viola said, I am a pierogi connoisseur. I've had the pleasure of going to Poland and got spoiled with the żurek and the pierogis. And remind me one time to tell you the story where Magdalena and I and 3 other people went to Mondu's and ordered 80 pierogies between 5 people. That was awesome. So cloud is calling. So, and we're going to talk at this from a perspective from Appfire. And who is Appfire? So real quick, for those that may not know, Appfire is the largest marketplace vendor in the Atlassian ecosystem. I believe we have over 200 apps. We've been in business for 20 years. So that puts us back to what, 2006, 2000, and then actually, yeah, 21 years. 2005 is when Appfire started, and Jira was created in 2002. So we've been along with Atlassian for the ride almost the entire time there. So And, obviously we're talking about this because Atlassian has made the announcement that it's the end of life for data center 2029. And so now, if you haven't started talking about moving to the cloud, now's the right time to do it. So, but it doesn't come without challenges, right? So, if we're on data center, we're going to go to cloud. So there's a couple barriers, technical barriers. It's completely different architectures, right? So we're going from on-prem up to the cloud. So different UI, different architecture. There's going to be different features and functionalities between the two. Organizational barriers, right? So, in a large enterprise system, not everyone, thinks that the Atlassian stack is the priority, right? Maybe you have other, Salesforce, and they're doing some things, or your HR department's doing different things, and so everyone's got competing priorities. But you need to be able to overcome those and get the Atlassian stack up to the cloud. And then industry barriers, obviously, right? So you have highly regulated industries that have a lot of governance and compliance requirements that on-prem, it's a little bit easier to manage, but now going to the cloud, you have a whole different complexities that you need to be able to address and or document for auditing purposes. So a lot of different things to think about. But with that change comes opportunity, right? So, if you think about it, like we're moving to this new architecture, new technology, it's going to be more expansive from a feature and functionality perspective. So now, Kat said, you can take advantage of some of these new products that Atlassian has that are cloud only, such as Compass or Jira Product Discovery, or some of these other ones that can really benefit your organization. But it also allows you to do kind of like a spring cleaning. So now I can say, hey, what do I have? Am I using everything from, say, for example, on an app perspective? And do I need those in the cloud? And do I have feature parity in the cloud with that? So it allows you to do a nice audit / spring cleaning before going to the cloud, so that now from an operational perspective, when you're up in the cloud, you have a bit more of a streamlined enterprise.
Oh, Ed, sorry to interrupt. If you could just press on the slide share, we could definitely see much more of your presentation.
Hold on, what do I got to do?
Just a slide share. I mean, just quick, because we have seen only this small presentation altogether.
The slideshow button on the top right next to the share button, that will put it on full screen. Right now we're able to see, I think, some of the peripherals.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me try this again. So share. And so I come up here, I say slideshow. Is that not full screen for you?
Oh, never mind. I think we can work with that because it doesn't work. but don't worry.
It's full screen for me, so I can't see what you.
All right. Okay, we can work with that. So don't worry. Don't worry. Continue, please.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
Okay. So let me go back one. Yeah. So we have the opportunity. So now, like Kat just described, we have the migration process. So you have your different steps that you need to follow through for your migration journey, starting with assessment, inventory, and migration planning. So that again is where you do your instance optimizations. We're going to evaluate what we have, what we're looking at, what we're going to move, how we're going to move it. Are we going to do a one-shot migration? Are we going to do a phased approach sort of thing? Then we go to migration prep and test migration. So we want to make sure that if we have multiple data center instances, we're going to consolidate them down. If we have our data center instance, we want to make sure that we get rid of all technical debt, so unused components, duplicate fields, anything from that perspective, so that when we move from data center to the cloud, we have a clean instance that is being moved. We're not taking any garbage up to the cloud with us. And then we have the production, migration, and cloud management pieces where that's where we're into moving into the performing the actual migration. And then once the migration is complete, we move into more of a change management process. From now that we are on the cloud, we have a sandbox and a production, and now we need to maintain between those two instances. So what that means is that Appfire how does Appfire do that? So what we do is we don't do services per se, since we are an applications company. But what we do is team up with a services provider or solutions provider like a Deviniti, and we become an extension of their team. And so, you know, a Deviniti will come in and they will do the actual migration processes. And what we do is we become an extension of the team, and we provide the support that they need from an application perspective for, hey, here's a migration path for JMWE from the data center to cloud, and here's the best practices of what's going to happen when you do that migration kind of thing. And so we will help them do that instance optimizations and the planning, and then be there for support as they go through the migration process. One thing I like to point out is that spring cleaning piece, the optimization, that's a really important one. And I think one of the most impactful ones, where you can actually go through your data center instance. Let's take an evaluation of where we are, where we want to be, and kind of map out, do we need all the same apps? Do we have apps that do duplicate functionality? So for whatever reason, have we acquired 4 apps, and then of those 4 apps, we still have one app that does all 4 of those. So can we consolidate those down? And that will reduce your financial outlay for an application. It'll reduce your vendor count. So from a procurement perspective, that helps out the organization as well. So again, we help out our partners such as Deviniti to go through that action. And then along with that, we make sure that we have elevated support. So obviously, you know, migrations usually don't happen on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They happen on the weekends for the most part. And we need to make sure that from an app perspective and a vendor perspective, we need to have our support engineers available for when our partners do those migrations. So we're not sitting there with a potential issue, having to wait till Monday for engineers to get in. So we want to make sure that we have that smooth migration support for our partners. And then just real quick, one of the big tools that Appfire uses to help with the migration process is Configuration Manager for Jira. On the data center and the cloud. So on the data center, it helps you remove all your technical debt and do your consolidations from that perspective, get everything ready. And partners usually use CMJ in conjunction with JCMA to move the migrations. And then once you get up to the cloud, CMJ switches into more of a change management application. So now we can go through the process of doing your development on your sandbox and moving into your production on a repeatable basis kind of thing. So, and that I believe is it. So I think I hit my time, hopefully.
Yes. Actually, we've got still 1 more minute, so I just wanted to comment on what you've mentioned. Competing priorities also brings another factor into the communication, right? How do you communicate those priorities, and how you listen to find out which priorities is the true priority? I think this is the trick here.
That
right?
is.
So, yeah.
That is. Different system areas always think they have the priority, right? So, engineering versus finance versus, they all say we have the most priority. But again, and that's where you come in from your executive level, to make sure that they understand what's happening from a migration perspective and the impacts that it takes, so they can, set the priority across the board.
Yeah, I think it takes a psychological effort as well to understand those priorities, yes, among different level of managers. And I also like the idea of spring cleaning. How I just wonder how you get them excited about spring cleaning. Probably for me, this sounds exciting. Just get rid of those things that you do not need. But again, this is also a perspective I love. Although I assume this spring cleaning does not come in spring only, right?
Correct. Correct. Okay. But it's funny, a lot of times when you go through that process, working with the customer and the partners, and a lot of times they don't even realize some of the apps they have. They don't realize that, we've had this app but no one uses it anymore, kind of thing.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
It helps you, streamline your procurement and your app catalog.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Thank you for this perspective. And right now we have the time to move on to another speaker. And this is our another guest, Sid, present here, or Siddharth Subramani. I know you prefer the name Sid. So Sid, who is our senior solutions engineer representing Tempo. who will add his view on the DC to cloud transition process, showcasing the key differences compared to the data center and what customers should plan for. So, Sid, if you are with us, I can see you. Yes.
Yeah, you can. And hopefully everyone can see my screen as well.
Yes,
perfect. Thanks, Viola. And like Viola mentioned, I'm a senior solutions engineer with Tempo. I've been in the SaaS space for the last 10 years and actually started off, managing projects and designing solutions myself before moving to, looking at the other side where I was developing applications as well to help extend Jira functionality. But just for a bit of background, Tempo is a platinum marketplace partner with Atlassian and provides apps that extend the functionality of Atlassian collections. So with that said, I think a lot of people have talked about the timelines, and what I did want to mention is while 2029 is when DC end of life is expected, there are a few milestones that everyone should keep in mind before that. Whether you're looking at when new licenses sales will be stopped for new customers, or whether the last date for existing customers to purchase new licenses will come up. I think with that said, obviously there is a lot of time between now and the end of life for DC for customers and everyone to plan their migration and go through that whole process. But with that said, you obviously want to get started as quickly as possible so that you can plan that migration smoothly, whether you're going with the lift and shift methodology or even looking at a more phased long-term approach, especially if you have multiple instances that you need to consolidate. But before we dive into that, I think what I wanted to is take a step back and talk a little bit more about was the end goal when you're going through all of these migrations, or just the way you've set up your environment. And the goal ultimately is to be a mature, have a mature answer for strategic portfolio management within the organization. And a lot of companies that we've worked with go through several steps that we have outlined here. Whether it's stage one where you're looking at more disparate project toolings, which involve no unified tracking, siloed systems, and lots of spreadsheets as well. And the end goal obviously is to look at more predictive outcome-driven insights and get into an organizational flow, which a lot of people are now leveraging by using AI and other tools that are coming into the picture. So what we feel is that the cloud migration is part of this maturity journey. So whether you're looking at consolidating tools or consolidating instances, like Ed had mentioned earlier, the idea is to get into that organizational flow, use a lot of the data that's available to start getting those outcome-driven insights that you can use to either speed up the process of development within your organization, or even start taking actionable insights from the data that's available. The whole goal being that you're able to collaborate across different teams. There's improved tracking. Each team can work in silos if they choose to, but the information is a lot more democratized and available to take actionable insights on. So most companies can identify where they are in this journey. And I think it's important as you go through this migration to identify where you stand so that you can start planning for the cloud migration and how to fit within your company's journey to a more mature strategic portfolio management organization. I think with that said, I wanted to talk about some of the best practices from a pre-migration standpoint that I've seen across different customers that we've worked with. And I think the first piece, which is really important, and I saw a few questions come up within the chat as well that talked about, whether we should move into dev or production. And I think I'm glad I added this in here because the cloud migration trial that Atlassian offers is a very important component of this. So any self-managed customers that are considering a migration have this available for them. And the idea is to build a proof of concept to see what life in the cloud is like, and then demo it to your internal stakeholders. And then as part of this, you obviously have the option to explore standard premium cloud features as well and functionality, and then evaluate the differences within cloud. And then part of this also involves testing your migration and performing those user acceptance trainings as part of your migration planning and execution. So the idea is all of this can fit really well into your migration strategy, regardless of what you choose, and give you that sandbox environment to play around in before you make any migration plans or changes, or even test out things that you may feel may break the migration path process, and then have an answer for it when you actually go through it within your production environment. And I think what will go hand in hand with this as well is the cloud migration assistance that Atlassian offers, the foremost being Jira Cloud Migration Assistant, or JCMA. And JCMA essentially is a bespoke tool for Jira GSM or Jira core that you can use to migrate your data. And typically, when you look at cloud migration or JCMA itself, it is a comprehensive tool, and it is essentially able to migrate whether it's application data or actual Jira data itself as you go through that migration. Now, the important thing to understand with this, obviously, is if there are any customizations that have been made to your DC instance, they may not automatically be migrated via JCMA. But at the same time, Atlassian has been making constant updates to it and has a comprehensive list of what gets migrated with JCMA. And if anyone's interested, those links are available publicly, but we can share them post this call as well. The other interesting thing as well, important point to note with JCMA is that it adds data to a Jira Cloud site without overwriting any existing data, which means that you can migrate data to a new cloud site or an existing site with which already has data, essentially. Now, with that said, obviously, from a vendor perspective, I have seen specific scenarios where customers also use APIs in addition to JCMA to migrate data from DC to cloud. But again, a partner like Deviniti will be able to, evaluate your internal requirements and then see what makes the most sense as far as migrating to the cloud goes. Apart from that, another interesting or important thing to note is that there are also cloud migration assistance for Confluence cloud migration. So in case you have any customers or yourselves that are using Confluence, you have that assistant available as well. And then last but not least, I think making sure that you identify any new features and leverage them as part of your migration journey, as part of your maturity journey is very important, because there are a lot of new features that have been added to the cloud that provide additional value and enhance workflows. I think the easy example that I can pick that I've seen personally and I use myself almost on a daily basis are AI tools like Rovo that is built into the Jira Cloud that can be used for several purposes, whether it's building agents for specific purposes or specific workflows, or even providing summaries from multiple data elements from Confluence or other sources. And it is really powerful. And I think to add on to this, AI has really become a big buzzword, and it's becoming the norm as well in a lot of companies. I think everyone's expecting the organization to use AI in a variety of different ways. Each team is required to use it. And I think the idea is, instead of hunting for specialized AI tools or worrying about security for those tools that you're evaluating, or even building something internally, leveraging those native purpose-built AI/ML algorithms with Atlassian intelligence is really powerful. And it allows you to explore the art of the possible when you're going through the whole migration journey, as well as the maturity journey. So I know this was a lot to cover. And I think these are topics that any of us on the call can talk about at great length and detail. I think I'll pause here. I know I threw a lot of information at you. If there's any questions, definitely feel free to ask them. But I thought this would be a good point to stop and then get to the next section as well.
A wonderful set. Thank you. Thank you. I believe this was the best tempo we had so far. I think it's an old joke, but I felt tempted to use it. Sorry. And I also like the idea of using maturity journey as an incentive. Would you like to become a mature person? Of course. Would you like to have a more mature environment? Of course. Would you like to see how what life looks like in the cloud? I love, these are the blocks that are building our journey here, and I like it. Like, we started with Kasia, then we moved through Ed's perspective, and now you adding another piece of the puzzle leading us to the cloud. So now I can think of us incomplete without our perspective as Deviniti being a marketplace vendor. And so we've got our last but not least in any way speaker, Diana, who is going to present our perspective as a marketplace vendor and our experience with cloud migrations. So Diana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Viola. Before I will dive into the topic, I need to say this is my first event ever when nobody passed the time frame of the presentation. You are great, guys. I need to say it. I will try to keep up with you, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
I'll help you.
Oh no, please don't. I will be stressed out. All right. So, hey, everyone. Once again, I'm Diana. I'm working at Deviniti I've been working here like 4 years now. Well, anniversary is coming. Time flies really fast. And I'm working right now as a part of customer success team, working closely with customers and partners, focusing on the application side, because as you've mentioned, we are a Platinum Solution partner, but we are also Marketplace Platinum partner within the Atlassian ecosystem. And I'm helping our customers and partners, among other topics related with applications, with the app migration to cloud. And let me just quickly share this, the presentation to show you what Deviniti can share about the insights of it with you. All right, I hope you can see it, right?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. Okay, so speaking of migration in general is a process that involves many parties. It's customer, teams, party, partners, Atlassian, of course, app vendors as well. And we need to say that each of this side bring a different perspective and sets of skills. And working as an app vendor, we are usually very close to how customer teams actually use their tools day to day, because we see configuration, we see workflows, we see use cases, and between them, we see also edge cases that only show up when an app or apps are deeply embedded in everyday work. And because of that, we tend to notice that certain things came up early during cloud migrations. Some questions around how an app will behave on cloud, what will work differently, and where the decisions are needed are really important when it comes to the vendor side. We are not just for like technical changes during the migration. And this isn't a mistake or a gap on anyone's side when nobody knows the answers about migration of whole platform or migration of specific apps right away, right? Because it's simply a natural result of the overall complexity of cloud migration. And this is also why apps are often one of the more complex parts of that migration. So when we talk about a vendor, we don't see our role just delivering a tool and stepping back. We want to be a support for customers, for partners. We want to be someone who helps make this part of the migration more predictable and easier to navigate. And based on what we see across many migrations with our customers and with partners and their customers, it probably won't be a surprise that there are a few recurring roadblocks around apps. So let me briefly walk you through the most common ones we've observed and talk about our solutions to it. So one situation we often see is teams starting the migration assuming that cloud will mostly continue what they already know from data center. And that's a very natural assumption. Apps and platform are usually deeply embedded in everyday work of the teams, of the customer teams. So it feels reasonable to expect that they will behave in a similar way. But here the questions before the migration, just during the preparation, starts to appear. As I said, what works the same way in cloud? What works differently? Where does the approach itself needs to change? At the beginning, those answers aren't always obvious. It's result of how complex cloud migration are. Another pattern we often see is migration being treated sometimes as a technical project. Sometimes the focus is on moving the instance, bringing system up, testing everything works, and closing the tasks. In that setup, apps are often recreated as they were in data center. Technically, this often works, of course, but cloud can change how certain things are achieved, even when the end goal is exactly the same. But cloud gives us new opportunities to use new tools or new features in it. So some configurations that were, for example, necessary in data center don't always need to be repeated in the same way in cloud. And if there is no time to pause and reflect on that, the opportunity to adjust to new possibilities, to new features and new tools gets missed. And there's one more situation that is worth mentioning. Sometimes app vendors are involved quite late in the migration questions. And it's usually when questions or issues around an app start to appear during the migration. And by that point, many decisions are already made on the side of customer, and there is just less flexibility to adjust things. It also takes time to vendor to fully understand how an app is used and why certain choices were made. And none of these situations are unusual, but together they often make migration more reactive and less predictable than they need to be. And based on that patterns, as I mentioned at the beginning, we don't see our role as owning the migration or redesigning setups for customers. Our goal as an app vendor is much simpler: to reduce uncertainty around apps at each stage of the migration, before, during, and after. Before the migration starts, this is mostly about clarity, right? So clear product documentation, clear feature parity information, and where possible, clear migration paths. For some apps, we also provide migration-specific materials focused purely on the migration journey. What to check before the move, what to pay attention to during it, and what should be validated after the migration and go live. But documentation is often the starting point only. Sometimes it helps to talk things through. That's why we are also offering overview conversations with our support team, customer success team, and product team as well on how a specific app behaves in cloud and what our customers and partners can expect during the migration. During the migration itself, we also stay available through our usual support channels. And for some migrations, we also providing a standby migration support. As Ed said before, we have something similar. We know that migration probably will happen on weekends. That's why from our side, we are available during the migration window. If any questions or issues come up with our applications, this support is coordinated together with the customer or the partner leading the migration and offered where it actually makes sense for our customers. And across the whole process, our approach stays the same. We try to stay open, accessible for customers and partners, and easy to reach, whether that's through support, short calls, or check-ins. It doesn't have to be, for us, a formal engagement with the migration. Often a short conversation with the vendors, with the crucial vendors at the right moment is enough to unblock a decision or avoid surprises later on. So to wrap up all those informations, there are few simple takeaways I would encourage you and your teams to keep in mind when planning a cloud migration. The first one, of course, it's involve app vendors early, not because everything needs to be decided upfront, but because early inputs from the vendors helps avoid unnecessary surprises, especially with crucial applications for your processes. Second, build a clear inventory of your apps, understanding what's in scope, how apps are used, and which one are those critical makes the migration far more predictable. And finally, try not to approach the migration as a one-to-one copy, because moving to cloud is a chance to be intentional, to think about what you are migrating, why and how it should work going forward. So from our side, as a vendor, we are happy to support this conversation at every of the stage of the migration for customer and partner, before, during, and after as well, not only when issues start to appear. And that's it from my side. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diana. I believe you are the best ambassador for openness and staying open and aligning, early. And this brings us actually closer to our Q&A session, where I intended to ask you the question about the touch points, yes, because we've experienced that. We as Deviniti as a vendor, we work together hands in hands with support team. We as a partner program manager, we try to reach out to our partners and clients, and the idea of being selected as the crucial application is the dream come true. But it depends actually on the workflows, right? But you've mentioned also that it's important to have the discussion before the key decisions are made. So how early is early for you? How early should be early when discussing the key points of migration?
It's a question for me.
It is a question to you, Diana, yes, because you mentioned that's how I just flow in.
By early, we can mean everything, to be honest. We don't mean like the very start of our cloud migration strategy. We mean, like, as you said, before key app-related, as I mentioned, a vendor perspective, are locked in, because we can share the perspective, what can be done in cloud, what can be migrate, and how you can recreate it. So if you have any crucial applications that needs to be migrated, try to involve a vendor as fast as possible during the decision stage of that migration.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And coming from the perspective of another vendor, the question, because we just talked about the pre-stage of migration, and Sid, you also discussed the entry part of migration. So I wonder if you have any advice on the steps to take post-cloud migration from your perspective.
Yeah. That's also a very relevant question. And I think, all of us have touched on it a little bit throughout, the different things that we presented, but by no means is a cloud migration journey like a one and done, right? There are a lot of things that you need to move over. I think some people in the chat also talk about different features that you can use. So identifying the ones that are important and have quick value adds allow you to target the low-hanging fruit and start showing successes early. But then you can also phase out the rollout of some of the other features as well that are going to be relevant. But obviously change management is going to be involved as well. So nobody likes change management, but it's an important part of any digital transformation. So I think post-migration, looking at what else is out there and then making it a journey as opposed to, okay, I'm just done with the migration, I can move on. And I think one of the reasons I specifically mentioned that is, before Atlassian, I started working on Atlassian Cloud Migrations. I was very heavily involved with ERP cloud migrations as well. So it was very common for me to work on projects where SAP was moving from their on-prem version to their cloud version like S/4HANA, or even Oracle was doing the same thing, just to name two examples. And it's very likely with a lot of customers or a lot of people on the call as well, your company internally either is already on a cloud version of their ERP, or they're planning to move it, or they're in the process of moving. So I think there's a lot of best practices internally that you can learn from there as well. And the other thing I'm noticing, especially when it comes to Atlassian and the partners that work, with Atlassian and are on this call as well, is that they're being a lot more proactive than what I've seen with other cloud migration strategies. So this goes back to what Diana was saying earlier, where, get people involved early, make those decisions early, because it will make the whole transition process, the whole change management process much smoother, because you'll have a longer time frame to plan for it, to account for any other projects that might come into the picture, like Ed had mentioned, because there's always going to be competing priorities. So the whole goal from a migration standpoint is to make it as smooth as possible, and then create a clear, defined plan that keeps evolving as you discover new features, as you discover post-migration strategies as well that will help your company stay best in class, amongst other things. Oh, Viola, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Oh, thank you. Yep. So we've got one question on chat, which I have seen has been already answered, but I believe this deserves to be spoken out loud. The question, would you recommend migrating to production directly or dev instant first, got the answer from Rajat. And thank you, Rajat, for answering the question for us. So let me just read it because we do not have the access, or unless you want to read it, just let me know. But since we are a little bit pressed for time, I will just read it for everyone, just to make sure that everyone knows the answer suggested. Dev instant for sure would be the first step suggested by Rajat, because it helps validate data integrity before impacting users, also allows testing marketplace apps if they are compatible or not. What are the alternatives, native features, if any? It helps with running the UAT and getting the sign-off from stakeholders before you decide to move to cloud. And what's your perspective? Would you like to comment on that, Kate or Ed?
I really don't know if there is anything we should add, because this is a full answer to the question.
I've seen your comment, actually. Yes.
Unless you want to roll the dice and go straight to production. Yeah, no. Definitely go to a sandbox first and get your processes defined and fleshed out before you start to look at production.
All right. Okay. So my final question would be, because we've worked on that
before you will ask this question. Guys, if there's anything specific you want to see during next session, this is the time for putting this on the chat. From the perspective not only as a presenter but also the champion of this ACE, we need to create the content for you for the next sessions, and we want to make sure that it will be interesting for you. So, Viola, okay, I am not jumping in anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, this is what I was getting at, because we've been working on the preparation for this event together. Kasia and Ola, who are champions, with understanding that our vendors will bring their unique perspective. But what we are really into is the need you might have. Yeah. So if you have any questions, you can think of them. You can email us, our emails, so you can definitely instruct us on how we should approach our next event to make it knowledgeable, interesting for you, and just to use your time to the full and to the best of our abilities. So I think no more questions asked, because we are getting to the end of this session. So I believe only thank you is in place here. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to you attendees. And I hope we will see one another in our next session. So I'm really grateful for you to being part of our first inaugural event. It was lovely to have you. I hope we'll see one another at some future event by Atlassian, be it a team or any other ACE. So thank you once again.